you know, and I listened to the radio about 5 or 6 hours a day. And that kept me very much in touch with the rest of the world. And of course, I had my books I could read. Yeah. And I think loneliness comes from inside. You know, people who are free and who live in big cities, you hear so much that they suffer from terrible loneliness. So I think loneliness comes from inside.
I mean, you've actually written a great deal about fear and fearlessness. Was there a point during your house arrest that you actually had to conquer fear?
No, not during my house arrest, but when I was small, it was in this house that I conquered my fear of the dark. So perhaps I feel comfortable in this house.
How did you conquer your fear of the dark then?
Well, just by wandering around in the dark
at
night for about 2 weeks running, and by the end of that,
looking where all the demons might be. Yes. And they weren't there?
They weren't there, and then I got a bit bored with the whole idea.
What were the ordinary pleasures that you look forward to? The small pleasures?
I look forward to each day. I suppose I like keeping to a timetable, a routine. And I had a very busy timetable, although this may sound very strange to people. From 4:30 when I got up in the morning to meditate, right through until I went to bed at 9 o'clock. There was always something to do at every hour of the day. And I quite looked forward to it. I have to confess that there were times when there would be a good book being read on off the shelf on the BBC. Then that would be something I would look forward to in the evenings. And then I would look forward to continuing with the books I was reading. And of course, meditation was always very calming and very strengthening. I didn't enjoy my exercises so much. I did them regularly, but I've never been a very athletic type. And I did it out of a sense of duty.
What did you do, aerobics?
I started with aerobics, then later when Michael was allowed to come to see me, he brought me an exercise machine for my back. He said that it was good, and it did seem to help. My spondylosis got much better after that. I didn't enjoy it though. I've never liked physical exercise very much, but I did it very, very conscientiously every day. And it was always a great pleasure to look forward to the time when I'd got it over and done with.
That's a very healthy attitude, I must say.
I'd say, finished my exercise for the day, won't have to do anything for the next 24 hours.
That's the boring bit of the day over.
So I would do it in the morning immediately after my meditation.
What's the true story of the piano? Now, I've read that you became so exasperated with it that you hit it rather hard and broke a string, and that broke the piano.
Well, the string broke, but the piano had been going for some time. I did have it tuned once, but in the first place, I have to confess, it's not the best piano in the world.
No.
It was really not worthwhile continuing with it. It was very unpleasant. I'm not a very good musician to begin with. And when you're not a good musician, the piano needs to be good to make whatever you play acceptable.
It wasn't the temper that you've described that you became so exasperated with it?
Yes, I broke a string through thumping too hard.
Oh, it's a wonderful scene. Think of you here all alone. A very moving scene, actually. You're so angry that you hit the piano so hard that it breaks.
I think if you had been present, you would have been more amused than anything else. I was rather amused about it afterwards.
Was it difficult on your own, to contain things like rage and anger?
No, not really. I'm not the sort of person who stays angry for a long time. I do have a hot temper, but it doesn't go on and on. So it's...
You've got nobody to take it out on. I mean, we all, from time to time, take out our temper on others, but you're alone. That must have been difficult.
Yes, that's true. Took it out on the piano.
I ask only one thing, Aung San Suu Kyi wrote to her husband Michael, that should my people need me, you would help me to do my duty by them. Sometimes I am beset by fears that circumstances and national considerations might tear us apart just when we are so happy in each other that separation would be a torment. And yet, I am sure love and compassion will triumph in the end.
You've become quite an extraordinary icon of hope. Is that a burden?
Yes and no, because yes, because I think if people base their hopes on you, then of course it's a responsibility. No, because I've always said that I can't do it alone, and neither can the NLD do it alone. We need the help of the people, and we need the help of the world, because the time is past when we can afford to be an island unto ourselves, adrift from the rest of the world. And also, I don't take myself that seriously.
Yeah. Your friend at Oxford, Anne Pasternak later, wrote that you are a pure Oriental traditionalist. Is that a fair description?
I don't know. It's very difficult to see oneself from the outside. I suppose by that she means that it was very natural for me to keep up some of the traditions with which I was brought up with. And I grew up in Burma at a time when the Burmese could afford to be proud of themselves. So I have, for me, it is very natural to be proud of Burmese values and of Burmese culture. I think if your country is doing well, which it was when I was young and we were a democracy, then you naturally feel you can hold your head up when it comes to your traditional values and your cultural values. And this is probably why she saw me as a pure Oriental traditionalist.
Well, she said it admiringly. I mean, she wrote about how she admired the way you were, the way you dressed, and so on. Although I have to say, she did give the impression that you were rather straight-laced.
Yes, I suppose compared to a lot of Westerners, I'm straight-laced, and perhaps also compared to a lot of Burmese too. We were brought up rather strictly because my mother was a disciplinarian.
Are you in any way a product of the environment that you knew growing up and at university in England? Because it was very much an English upper class environment.
Well, the ideas that I came across in Oxford were not that different from the ideas with which I grew up, because Burma after independence was a very liberal society. And Oxford, I think, when I think of Oxford, I think of intellectual liberalism. And I think this was very much the atmosphere in Burma after independence, because under democracy, people were free. We had lots of newspapers, and people wrote very freely, expressed their ideas very freely. So it was not strange to me at all. It was just a continuation of the climate in which I had grown up.
You are very different in one real sense, aren't you? I mean, in Burmese society, males have priority in everything. How would you change that if you were leading a democratic government in Burma?
People do keep asking me about women's rights, and I always find it a little difficult to answer because the men in Burma have no rights either. And under the circumstances, I feel that first of all, we have to get basic human rights for everybody. And then we'll have to attack those areas where women are particularly discriminated against. And obviously, if women are being discriminated against, it means that to some extent they are being deprived of their human rights.
Is Burma going to be free in your lifetime?
Oh, well, I can't tell what my lifetime is going to be, so I cannot answer that question.
All right. Then will Burma be free within the foreseeable future?
I think so, yes.
Within 10 years?
This is my belief, yes, within the foreseeable future.
Well, that's not just a dream, that's something you believe.
No, it's not just a dream. It's what I calculate from the will of the people and also the current of world events and world opinion.
When we set out to make this film, you were still under house arrest. And I never thought that we'd be sitting in this room having this conversation
Did you think I was going to go on being under house arrest for a long time?
The regime certainly gives the impression of being a particularly brutish regime, certainly. And yet here you are. Do you sometimes wonder yourself that your own fortune has changed in an extraordinary way, in a way that you yourself didn't expect?
No, I knew I'd be free someday. So I didn't think there was anything extraordinary about it.
Suu Kyi, thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you.